We're back. I just needed a breather. Man, I don't know what this thing is doing to me. It's like, but now the last thing I did mention on my last clip, I'm just going to quickly go through the MLS playoff game that I went to over the weekend. It was very spur of the moment. Now, originally, I was going to go on Halloween, but I ended up having other plans on Halloween, which consisted of giving out candy to kids. I went home and I was giving out candy to the little kids. They're so cute. And I mean a lot of us, I even speaking now, I feel like a lot of us miss trick or treating. You got free candy and my strategy used to be we would go to this neighborhood that's like the one where I used to live in, like when I was like we lived there for a while. Like we lived there for a year when we were trying to find an actual house in our town, and that place was prime for trick or treating. That whole neighborhood was just great for it. And like the houses were pretty close together. People gave out really good candy. And what we would do is we would have a small trick or treating bag. And then in the end, we would just collect it all and put it in a giant trash bag. And not like put it in like the trash, but we would put it in this huge trash bag. And then later you would just dump it out. And it was awesome. And then a bit later, since my dad would get back from work, we would go and just go around my neighborhood. So we had a lot of candy by the end of the night. And ooh, I just remember how sick I would used to get off it all. But so I was gonna go to the playoff game on Halloween, but the plans ended up not happening. But I ended up going on Sunday night rather than on Wednesday. And to say the least, I know a lot of people aren't really into soccer since this isn't a sport that a lot of people will watch, especially in the US. I mean, soccer is the sport everywhere else in the everywhere else in the world. Soccer is like the sport that you watch out of like all of them. And there was a lot of international talent on both teams. There were people from Norway, Costa Rica, Venezuela. Like there were people from everywhere on both teams. And the thing about that soccer game, and right now, New York FC does play in Yankee Stadium. They were playing Atlanta, and people have heard of Atlanta's fan base. Their fan base is massive, even though they got the team not that long ago. For how kind of short they've been around, they have produced this fan base, and they are selling out Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which for those of you who watch football, that's where the Atlanta Falcons play. They will sell out that stadium for soccer, which I find extremely surprising, especially for the South. The South is more of a football it's football country down there, pretty much. Not football, but football, like American football. It's more football country down there, and yet they will sell out these massive soccer games. Now for New York, it's a bit different since New York did have a team before New York FC came around, and New York FC is a new development too. They had the Metro Stars. Oh my god, we used to go to so many Metro Stars games when I was a kid, and though the team was horrible, I remember specifically if they I don't know if they scored a certain amount of goals, if they scored more than 3 goals, or if they won, they would give out Snickers. And they didn't give out like the little mini Snickers. They would give out these like the king size Snickers to everyone. And my brothers used to like grab tons of them because it's free Snickers. But let's get to the game I watched. Now, the crowd, of course, was very, very active through the whole game, and they did have sort of the traditional singing that you'll see in European countries, and they had the drums, they had the flags. The fan section was similar to where the Yankees will have their bleacher creature seats, and it was cool to see that. Like, I didn't think I was going to see that, especially in the States. And the game itself was very, very good, and there were a few times where goals were scored and it would be off like the first couple of minutes Atlanta scored and they had a review on it because someone thought it was offside, and turns out the goal was offside, so they got the goal taken away from them. But the same thing happened on New York FC's part where they tried to score a goal and the goal was offside, so they didn't get it. And so Atlanta won that game. They won 1-0. And here's how the MLS playoffs work, because it's weird. It's not you're in a series and you win a certain amount of games and whoever wins the amount of games moves on. It's you have to score the most goals out of the games that you face with your opponent to move on. And if each team has an equal amount of goals scored, so let's say New York and Atlanta had 3 goals apiece, it's whoever scored more goals away. So I don't know, pretend Atlanta had scored 2 goals during New York's game, and New York only scored 1 goal during or New York scored 3 goals when they went to face Atlanta. New York would move on just on the fact that they had more away goals than Atlanta, even though they would have had the same number of they would have had 3 goals apiece. And what I noticed about this game, even though I'm not really a soccer I'm not a soccer know-it-all, even though it does happen throughout my house, there was just a lot of not running fast enough, not going hard enough for the ball, a lot of stealing, a lot of missed opportunities. It sounds like the New York Rangers, guys. Not that the goalie, and once again, just like the Rangers, the goalies weren't bad either. I mean, if you only allow 1 goal, but the other thing is the the goalies weren't really involved in the game as much as, in hockey. Hockey's a completely different animal than soccer. And soccer, the game was very defensive in the sense that the goalie didn't really have to do a lot because the defenders were picking not really picking up slack, but they were allowing the goalie to kind of not have to do as much as most games. But once again, New York, they were blowing opportunities. They had a ton of corner kicks that they could have taken and scored with them, but they didn't use them to their advantage. And even when they did switch sides during the second half, there was just it was just a lot of inconsistency. So if you're interested in watching this, and I do recommend you try to watch this because, I mean, people do have a bad impression of soccer here, just mainly on the U.S. national team. You saw what happened last time. They lost to Trinidad and Tobago of all the places and didn't make the World Cup. And that kind of has led to a whole thing where the states, they want to try to develop a soccer system that's as good as those in England and in other countries where the soccer clubs could have these schools where kids could learn the sport and all that stuff. And so, as I was mentioning with the New York FC fan bases, it is a bit smaller than the Red Bulls one because the Red Bulls I forgot what year this was. The Metro Stars changed to the Red Bulls, and now the Red Bulls are based in New Jersey. They play out of a stadium in Newark, and I did go to that stadium once. It was nice, but then New York FC started here, and for those people who live in the city, it's a bit easier to go to Yankee Stadium than it is to go all the way out to Newark. Oh, don't even get me started on Jersey traffic. And New York FC, in a few years, they might have their own home. They are going to stay in the Bronx once again to keep it easy for those people commuting from Westchester and Long Island and Connecticut and wherever, and they're going to have their own stadium, and they are going to build in this neighborhood. It's 150 East 153rd Street. They're hoping to build this New York FC stadium, but for now, they are in Yankee Stadium, which again has really good subway access, and there's a reason why they are such a draw around here. So once again, if you are interested in watching this game, it is November 11th at 7:30. I hope it's at 7:30, but you could look it up on MLS.com. They have a whole playoff schedule there where you could watch any of the other playoff games, not just for New York FC, but for the Red Bulls. And with that, I am going to wrap my show up. I have a test and I want to look over my stuff, and I do have to do a bit of reading for my medieval literature class. And I hope you all have a good day and have a good week. And goodbye, y'all.